I'm National Civil Rights Attorney Ben Crump of the Ben Crump Law Firm, and I fight every day to make sure that every citizen has a right to the American promise of life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness.
You know, Ben, I'm gonna go right back to what I was saying before. You know, I know your story. I know about being, shipped to school, right? I know about what that was and how that shaped, and Thurgood Marshall and how he shaped your journey. And what I was saying was a human connection. What was it about human connection as a lawyer, and what you can do for people that really made this the path that you chose to go down?
The reason I chose the path of fighting for marginalized people who oftentimes had no voice is because my mother and my grandmother taught me humanity, to have respect for the humanity in every human being. And so, a lot of times people look at clients who I've represented their families, like George Floyd. You see just a big, tall, strong black man, and you come up and form all kind of stereotypes of who George Floyd is, what manner of man is he. But you oftentimes overlook the humanity in these individuals just because the color of their skin, just because the community where they come from or the index of their salary. No, man, at some point we have to see the value in all of our human brothers and sisters, that we're all God's children. And so that's the connection I have, that I believe God blessed me with these blessings to try to be a blessing to others. Forget all this legalese and these technicalities and innuendo and precedent and stare decisis, whatever you want to say. It goes back to what my personal hero, Thurgood Marshall, told us. I want you young aspiring lawyers to go in courtrooms all over America and argue what is right.
There's a term that I use in a lot of these interviews with lawyers like you, and that is the inception of purpose. It's a term I may have coined, right? But it's that point in life when we realize that this is what I am meant to do. When did you discover, right, that these blessings that God gave me, this right here, I'm in the right place, and that I should continue on down this path? When was that for you?
I decided I want to be a lawyer when I was in the 4th grade. After seeing what they had in the white community and what we were lacking in the black community, I wanted to go fight for our community to have equal opportunity at achieving the American dream, and fight for people who look like me to have an equal opportunity at achieving the American dream. But I think my inception of purpose would be, I knew fighting for a young black woman in Tallahassee, Florida named Vonzetta Young. The police officers had a warrant and knocked in her front door, one of these no-knock warrants, and her 4 young boys were in that government housing project. And it was so disturbing to me that, she hired us, they shoved her down, brutalized her, put guns in front of her children's faces. Her youngest child was 2 years old, her oldest one was 10 years old. And can you imagine the psychological trauma of those little black boys, because she had all boys, putting guns at their head, and they did nothing wrong. The police were at the wrong apartment. And then going to fight in the courtroom for Vonzetta Young, and having Judge F.E. Steinmeier telling me he saw no problem with the police getting the judge to sign a search warrant for the whole quadruplex. I mean, you got to be specific when you're going to violate the Fourth Amendment rights of citizens. But he said these poor black people were in the government housing project. It didn't matter. They could pick any one of the 8 units and just kick in the door and violate their rights as Americans. And so I fought for that. And that was the first case that told me, you know, not only did I aspire to be like my personal hero, Thurgood Marshall, but now more than ever, our purpose was present. It wasn't over with. We hadn't all of a sudden became a pro-racial society or anything like that. Vonzetta Young, this black woman, knew what they did was an injustice, and she wanted to know if there was anybody who would speak up and give her a voice.
And you know, Attorney Crump, you've become a voice of this generation. And I say that with a lot of humility myself, because, you know, a lot of people, they use that term post-racial.
Yeah.
You know, at almost every turn in the plight of African Americans in this country, there have been people saying, "Oh, it's over now."
Yeah.
You know, we've turned the corner. After George Floyd, after Trayvon Martin,
Yeah.
people said, "Oh yeah, you know, things are going to be different now."
Yeah.
After George Floyd, and look, after George, you know, I saw the most diverse marches around the entire world in support of the justice that needed to come down on Mr. Floyd's behalf. Will we ever turn a corner? You know, well, let me back up. It hasn't ended.
Right.
You're not going out of business.
Regrettably. My police
you know.
brutality
what
department
about the misnomer?
won't be shut down soon.
Let's speak to that, right? It's still going on, isn't it?
You know, when you think about it, man, it's sad, but racism is baked into the fabric of American society so much that when you protest racism, people think you protesting America. And we saw that more than ever in the previous administration that held the White House, you know, trying to take back the rights that had been gained, talking about, oh, everything is post-racial. Well, if we say it's post-racial, that means at some point we had to have equality amongst black and white people, brown and white people. There is no empirical evidence, no data, no statistics that will swear out any of that there's equality amongst black and white people in America where we can now say that's behind us, we're post-racial. It hasn't been that way yet, and we have to continue to fight every day for it to be that way. You know, Martin Luther King said that he was going to show white people in America what they did to black people, and they were going to cry. And he did for a large part. And they saw what they did, how cruel they treated black people, and they all cried. And then they woke up the next day, and nothing had changed. And so it's the institutions that we have to change in America. You know, people come and go, live and die. Institutions remain forever.
And, you know, one thing that we talk about a lot in this room, and that is the importance of the work that we do as attorneys to change things. Yeah. By holding people accountable, right? Maybe this institution won't continue to operate this way. Maybe this insurance company won't continue to operate this way, or this company may change its practice. How important, or you know, is the attorney's role in affecting change inside of institutions, inside of corporations and companies, and inside of these insurance companies that basically help, you know, facilitate that ongoing drama that we're living in?
It is so important to hold these entities, whether it's governmental entities or corporate entities, to account for the injustices that they commit, because we have to still remember that America is a capitalistic society. And if America understands anything, it is money. And so if we can ascribe greater value to marginalized people of color, that every time the police shoot a young black person in the back running away, or every time the bank commits banking while black, or every time you have a corporation illegally dumping toxic pollution into the community where our children go to school and play and live every day, then that's when you start seeing them change their actions. They won't do it unless somebody makes them pay for their actions. It's kind of funny oftentimes. We say so much, it's so much rhetoric and everything. And what we have to fight every day is to reveal what is the rhetoric and what is real. I mean, think about little marginalized people in America. They hear all the rhetoric constantly, about in this courtroom, it's blind. Well, it's amazing how the little white boys and girls who had the same fact pattern as I had got escorted out the courtroom with a slap on the wrist. But I'm getting fingerprinted and convicted of a trumped up felony conviction that I'm going to have to wear like a scarlet letter, bear this cross for the rest of my entire life. That's going to marginalize me in ways that I can't even imagine. When every time you type my name in, it pops up, I'm a convicted felon.
Where is the common ground, right? Where is the common ground? There's a lot of differences between people in our country, and from ideological standpoint, from political standpoints, there's a lot of disagreement. Where is the common ground? Is it humanity? Where is it, you think?
Well, I pray that the common ground that we find is in humanity. However, I think we always have to have common ground to be able to disagree with one another, but not be disagreeable. Civility. The documentary that Netflix did on me is civil. And this whole mindset that our society needs to be civil with one another. That we need to believe in civil rights. We need to believe that there's a right to civil justice. This notion that the last administration put out that we're just not only disagree, but we're disagreeable with one another constantly. That if it's something good that you advance, even if it's good for America and everybody, we can't support it because you put the idea forward or you put the bill forward. And that is the problem that I see we're having in America, and we have to be able to submit to our better angels that say that America can be great if we just believe in the Declaration of Independence and it's not rhetoric.
I think one thing that really made George Floyd an international thing was the simple human deduction that what I'm seeing is wrong, right? A lot of human beings could witness what they witnessed, and there was no argument that could be made to support it. And not in every case is it that clear, where you look at what happened, the fact pattern of the case, and they're like Breonna Taylor. Yeah. There are people who will stand on the other side of that and make arguments, to contravene what a lot of us see as something that's clearly wrong. How do we get over? How important first is that ability to see right and wrong together as a stepping stone.
I think it's so important for us as a society to be able to acknowledge what is right and what is wrong. There can be no gray line on morality. You gotta say, as moral people, we know what they did to George Floyd was wrong. As moral people, we know them lying on a probable cause affidavit to get the judge to sign a no not wanting to bust in Breonna Taylor's front door and shoot her and mutilate her body while she's practically naked is wrong. We have to have some sense of a clear line of what's right and what's wrong. And I sometimes believe that the hope is with the younger generation. All those multiple, diverse crowds that stood up in protest after George Floyd was tortured to death. They're the hope because they're not accepting what their mother and father are accepting. They're saying, no, we're better than that. We're gonna have a better world than what you all are giving us. We're gonna have a better America. And it doesn't matter if you disagree with us going down to the protest to march for George Floyd and say, until we get justice for George Floyd, none of us can breathe. If we get justice, and I'm sorry, it's not enough for them to get mad at the young people for going to the protesters and yelling from the top of their lungs that until we get justice for George Floyd, none of us can breathe. It is going to be our conviction to humanity to say that what happened on that video, I will not condone.
Let's shift in this last 2 minutes.
Okay.
Right, and what you're talking about is the future, right? And here we are at the Brain Trust Legal Group, the Legal Marketing and Management Summit, and you talked about becoming a national law firm, but I really want you to give some advice to this new generation of attorneys who at some point will really pick up the mantle of the work that you've been doing, that you've in Thurgood Marshall's steps that you followed. Somebody will follow along in your steps, inspired by the work that you're doing. In terms of marketing and managing a law firm for a young person doing this work, and any other advice on how to elevate your profile, right? How to elevate your game, right? So that the work that you're doing is more more important,
okay,
right? You're finding more better cases and you're doing better work over time.
I will tell any young attorney who's trying to elevate their profile and their business is just these 4 things. Number 1, always be authentic, be yourself. There's nobody who can be you better than you. And so you define who you are and you go try to improve yourself, but never change who you are. Secondly, when given the opportunity to speak truth to power, you do it. That was the advice my grandmother gave me. Thirdly, you do it with passion. Whatever it is you're doing, you do it with passion. And finally, try to always do the right thing. You don't do a thing because of the result. You do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, no matter what may come. My fraternity brothers, Omega Psi Phi, taught me that you treat those 2 imposters, triumph and disaster, just the same. No, I did it because it was the right thing to do. And whether I'm going to be crucified for it or celebrated for it, I will do it again.